I hope everybody can see my presentation. Uh, it just says Java programming. Okay. Let me know if anybody have trouble in seeing my presentation or hearing my voice. Okay. So today we are going to discuss data types and operators in Java. And as I have mentioned in the last class, the data types and operators are exactly same as that we have seen in C++. So I will not be doing any kind of programming or I'll not be going into any uh, detailed explanations. I just mention what are the possible data types and operators that is present in C++. This part we have seen last class. I have mentioned about a possible use of IDE in Windows machines or Linux machines or in any of the laptops for programming in Java. So you can execute Java without IDE, that is mentioned here. I had demonstrated in the last class how we can do this. Or you can use an IDE. So IDE means Integrated Development Environment. So an Eclipse is one of an option of using an IDE in. It is one of the best option for Java programming using IDE in Windows machines or Linux machines. Okay. Or you can go for online IDEs. So if you have a stable internet connection, then you can check out this tutorials point online GDB Code Chef. They have an interface in which you can do the Java programming and run it. Even there, some of them have an option to debug, and you can also see the outputs. So I'll be uploading this slide so you can choose whichever you want. And if you're using Android phones, then you have an IDE called as Java NID. I think it is also there in iOS. So you can just install that app and you can write the program in the app and you will be able to get the output. Okay. Now coming back to our discussion on Java programming. So as we have mentioned in C++, in Java also there is something called as variables. So variable is, you can say, as a memory location. So whenever you declare a variable, basically you are telling to the program to allocate a memory location for the variable. So while the program gets executed, the value in the memory location will change according to your program. For example, if the variable name is A and it has an int value or int data type, then you can assign a value of 10 initially. Then as you go on running the program, you can also program to assign a value 20 so that the value of 10 will change to 20. So as the name indicates, variable, the value in the memory location of the variable will change periodically when you do the program. Okay. So naming of the variable should follow the rules of identifier naming. Identifier, as I mentioned in the last class, is something that the programmer gives, or a name which the programmer gives. You can give any name for a variable, but with Java related rules. Okay. And data types in C++, we have seen data types like int, float, um, and also uh, you have char, arrays, etc. In Java, you can characterize them into two mainly. One is called as primitive data types, another is non-primitive. So primitive means which has been there since the first coding language, first programming language, something which is old, which is basically numeric and non-numeric. Numeric is like integer, floating point. This has been there since C program. And non-numeric means char and boolean. Non-primitive is something which has come recently or which has been defined in Java or which is not there in the older languages, except arrays. So classes was introduced only in C++. Interface is a new type of data type which is introduced in Java, which we'll see here as we go. And each data type means that it is assigned a specific size of a memory. If you declare a variable as int, for example, int a, then the memory allocated to that variable is 4 bytes. So this chart shows all the possible size of memory allocations for each data type. Boolean is actually 1 bit, but internally it is actually 1 byte, but we can say it as 1 bit. Char is 2 bytes, float is 4 bytes, double is 8 bytes, which is actually an extended version of float. Long is 8 bytes, which is actually an extended version of int. And in the third column, we can see the maximum number that can be stored inside each of these data types. So byte can store from -128 to 127. But when you go to long, since there are 8 bytes, it is possible to store values from -2 raised to 64 to +2 raised to 64 -1. Okay, that much value that can store. Again, you can see that the maximum value is very, very high. It is in terms of trillions or zillions. Okay, so this is the data type and the corresponding sizes. Now, when you declare a variable in C++, we have seen that you will do something like data type space variable name. Exactly same in Java. The syntax is you say the data type space the variable name. If you have multiple variables of the same data type, you can put a comma and then you can say the variable name second one and go on. For example, int count means count is a variable whose data type is int. Float is a variable. Float is a data type which is used for variables x and y. Double is another data type and it is for pi. Okay, so declaration of variables does three things basically. Tells the comparer what the variable name is, count, x, y, pi, etc. It specifies what type of data the variable will hold. For example, if you declare it as int, it will hold only integer values. The place of declaration decides the scope of the variable. For example, if you are declaring this inside the main function or the main method, then you cannot access this variable outside the main method. So the scope or the boundary of the variable is within the declaration or the curly braces of the main. Okay, so that also is set by the variable declaration. And the most important thing is a variable should be declared before it is used in the program. For example, if you want to set count equal to 10, then first you want to say int count, then count equal to 10. Otherwise, it will give you an error. So this is a simple program where we have, this is a Java program only. We have defined a class called as variable example. There's a main function. So we have declared a variable called as var1, var value 1 and var value 2, which is of integer data type. Then what we are doing is we are assigning a value, integer value 10 to var value 1. Then we are printing that value. We have seen last class, we use system.out.println to print the var value 1 value. Here we have assigning a value of var value 1 to var value 2 means that now the value of var value 2 will be 10. Since var value 1 is not changed, it will be 10 also. Okay, and then we are printing the value of var value 2 using systemout.println. So this is a simple program to demonstrate how a variable is declared in Java, how a variable is assigned a value. It can also assign a variable to another variable so that the value on the first variable on the right hand side will be copied to the value in the left hand side variable. So that's about variables. Now let's look at something called as operators. We have seen operators in Max. We have seen operators like addition operators, which is plus, multiplication operator, which is star or X symbol, division operator, which is slash, etc., etc. Similarly, we can have a large number of sets of operators. And operators are used to manipulate data and variables. Now, the different type of operators are arithmetic, relational, logical, assignment, increment, decrement, conditional, bitwise, and special operators. We are going to see each one of them. So arithmetic operators are used for any kind of arithmetic operation or a mathematical operation. For example, plus is for addition. So let's say a equal to 10, b equal to 20 initially. So when you say a plus b, this will give me 30. Subtraction will give me minus 10. Multiplication is star, 200. Division, this one. And there is a modulus operator which will actually give you the reminder when you divide the operand by operator. So here, when you say b percentage a, which is 20 percentage 10, the reminder when b is divided by 10 is what b percentage a is, which will give me 0. There's an increment operator which is called as plus plus, which is actually, if you say b plus plus, it is b equal to b plus 1. Actually, this operator is there in C++ also. There's something called as post increment and pre increment, and you can see that b plus 1 is assigned to 21, and then something called as decrement operator, b minus minus, which is b equal to b minus 1, implies 20 minus 1, 19 will be the value of b. This is conditional operator. In Java, we have if-else conditions, and in each of the if-else condition, you can check the condition using operators. For example, if you want to check a equal to b, you have double equal to. If a not equal to b, you have exclamation equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So I have given an example here. If the value of a is equal to 10 and b equal to 15, what will be the output of each of these operations? And remember, the output of the operations are Boolean because you are checking a condition. So condition can either be true or false. So the corresponding result is also shown in the column next to this. So these are the operators for condition operators in Java. Now there is a logical operation. Logical operation means that if you want to check multiple conditions at the same time, for example, ampersand means logical and. So here you are checking, so let's say a is true and b is false. So if you want to check if a ampersand b, it is basically saying that if a is true and b is also true, then the output is true. Otherwise, it is false. Similarly, logical operator, a is called as pipe, double pipe, b. So you are asking if value of a is true or value of b is true, the output is true. Similarly, there is called as logical NOT, which is your, basically you can say it is your like a NOT gate, where you are inverting the value. So here, if you see a ampersand b, which is false, when you put a NOT to it, it is true. It is called as a NOT operator. And you have a lot of assignment operators. Equal to is a new normal assignment operator, where you say c is equal to a plus b. Plus equal to is c plus equal to a, means c is equal to c plus a. Minus equal to means c minus equal to a, means c is equal to c minus a. So wherever you have plus equal to, minus equal to, or any operator equal to combined, it basically means whatever operator, whatever variable is there on the left hand side is equal to that same variable minus the variable on the right hand side. Okay, please remember that. So you have similarly percentage equal to left shift, right shift, bitwise and bitwise exclusive or, and bitwise exclusive, inclusive or. So all these operators are mentioned on this table. Now there are bitwise operators where the operation will be happening instead of the complete memory wise, but instead of each bit in the memory. For example, ampersand means that you do a bitwise AND between the two variables. Let's say a equal to 16, b equal to 13. When you do ampersand a ampersand b, you convert 60 into the binary digits and you convert 13 into the binary digits, and then you do an AND operation with the corresponding digits in the variables a and b. That is called as the ampersand operator. Similarly, OR operation, you do a symbol OR operation with between the bits, and bitwise XOR, bitwise complement, and left shift, right shift, zero fill, right shift. All these operations are mentioned in this table. Operator precedence is also that we have seen in C++, where we say that if you have something like a plus b into c plus b, then the first thing that will be evaluated is b into c, and then it will be added to d and to a. So the precedence of the operator is done by putting a bracket. If you do a plus b into c plus b, then you have to put a bracket between a and b and put a bracket between c and b. So always the star operator, which is multiplication operator, have higher precedence than plus. But if you have a plus b minus c plus b, plus and minus will have the same preference. So so the evaluation will happen from left to right. That is, first a plus b will be done, then subtracted from c, then it will be added to d. So which is basically in this format. Similarly, star, division, modulo operation all have the same precedence, and they are left associative. Means it will be evaluated from left to right. So the best practice is always use a bracket to avoid ambiguity. So this is a precedence list, and the precedence with the number 15 has the maximum precedence, and any lower values will have a lower precedence. So if any operation comes with the 15th precedence operators and let's say 9th precedence operators, first the operations of the 15th precedence will be evaluated from the left to right associativity, and then the 9th precedence. So this precedence chart is very important when you are doing any kind of operation or if you are doing any complex operations. So this also we have seen in C++. If you look at this, you see that minus 3 plus 4 into 5 minus 6. So first 4 into 5 will be evaluated because it has the highest precedence. So it will be 20. 20 minus 6 is 14. 14 minus 3 is 11. Similarly, for the next case, when you do 4% 5, which is the value of the remainder when 4 is divided by 5, which is 4. 4 minus 6 is minus 2, plus 3 is 1. Similarly, minus 3 into 4% minus 6 slash 5. So if you look at here, star, percentage, and slash all have the same precedence. If you have the same precedence, then it will get evaluated from left to right. That is, minus 3 into 4 will be first done, which will be minus 12. Percentage minus 6 will be done, which is 0. 0 by 5 will be done, which is 0. If you want to change the precedence, you put a bracket. So if in this case you see that although plus has lesser precedence than percentage, because of the bracket in this one, you will have first will be evaluated 7 plus 6, which will be 13. 13% 5 will be 3. Reminder when 13 is divided by 5. And 3 by 2, since x is integer, 3 by 2, although the value is 1.5, the 0.5 will be truncated and the value will be 1. Okay, so this is regarding the data types of present in Java and the data types and the operators present in Java. So anybody have any questions regarding whatever we have discussed? I just went through it because all this we have seen in C++. Even the exercises that I have shown here was exactly same. So if anybody have any questions, or if you want me to do something extra, you can let me know. I can do that if it is okay. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go to the next presentation. Any questions? Okay, fine. So let's move on to the next presentation. I think I should start asking questions and give marks, then it will be easier. Otherwise, it's just like a radio where I'm talking and you are listening. Let me change my presentation. Okay, I am presenting my next set of slides. So in this one, we are going to look at classes and objects. And even the classes and objects, there is not much of a difference. Only thing that is might be a bit different is the usage of static. Apart from that, everything else is same. But I try to see if I can do some small amount of programs in this part, but let me see. Okay. So we are going to look at classes, objects, and methods. So the definition of class we have seen earlier provide a method for packing together a group of logically related data items called as fields and functions that work on them called as method. So classes is an example of encapsulation in an object-oriented program. So once a class type is created, we can define variables of this type. These variables are the instances of the class called as objects. So we have seen how we can create objects in classes. So syntax is class, class name. You can have extends superclass name. This is for basically for inheritance without the square brackets. Okay, and that's a starting bracket, closing bracket, and then you can have the declaration of variable, which is called as field declaration without the square brackets, and method declaration without the square bracket. So a field declaration is basically that you are declaring a variable in the class. So data is encapsulated in a class by placing data fields inside the body of the class definition. So for example, class rectangle is the class called as rectangle, which is named as rectangle. The fields or the variables inside the class are length and width, which are of type integer. Okay. And these variables are also called instance variable as they are created only when the object of the class is instantiated. We'll see what instantiation is in a second. So you see that we have created two variables called as length and width of type int. Method declarations. So methods are functions defined inside the body of the class. Methods are used to manipulate the data inside the class. So you see in this example, apart from int length and int width, you have a function called as get data, which accepts two arguments, int x and int y, and you are just assigning the value of x to length and y to width. So this get data is called as a method. So it's just a different name for a function. It is actually a function only, but when you do it inside a class, it's called as a method in Java. Okay. So the method is return type void, has arguments x and y of type int. So you have a small exercise. I would like somebody to answer me. What is the name of the class in this example? Anybody? The question is very simple. What is the name of the class?
Circle.
Yeah, correct. It is name is circle with capital C. Find the fields. And so what are the name of the fields inside this class? So what you called as a field, any variable declaration is a field. So what is the name of the field inside this class? Anybody? that we have seen in the last slides. What there is a field, we call a different name for variables inside the class, which is called as a field. So what is the variable inside the class? If I want to rephrase the question.
Radius
Radius,
and
correct.
kind. Yeah.
Right. And the method is what's the name of the method? പേര് വിളിച്ച് ചോദിക്കണോ? Okay, let me see. So what is the name of the method mentioned in that class? Adil.
സർ
എന്താണ് ഈ ഒരു ക്ലാസ്സിനകത്തെ മെത്തേഡിന്റെ പേര്?
സർക്കിളാണ്.
സർക്കിള് ക്ലാസിന്റെ പേരാണ്. അപ്പൊ അതിനകത്ത് ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്ന മെത്തേഡ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഫംഗ്ഷൻ. ഫംഗ്ഷന്റെ പേരെന്താണ്?
ഏരിയ.
ഏരിയ. ഏത് ഏരിയ ആണ്? ഞാൻ ഓപ്ഷൻ തരാം. കാൽക്ക് ഏരിയ ആണോ വെറും ഏരിയ ആണോ?
കാൽക്ക് ഏരിയ.
ഓക്കെ, ഗുഡ്. ഓക്കെ, ഇനി വാട്ട് ഇസ് റിട്ടേൺ ടൈപ്പ്, മെത്തേഡ് നെയിം ആൻഡ് ഇൻപുട്ട് പാരാമീറ്റേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് ദ മെത്തേഡ്. അപ്പം ഈ ഒരു മെത്തേഡിന്റെ റിട്ടേൺ ടൈപ്പ് എന്താണ്? ഇനി ആരോളെ ജസിൻ,
സർ
റിട്ടേൺ ടൈപ്പ് എന്താണ് മെത്തേഡിന്റെ?
ഏരിയ.
റിട്ടേൺ ടൈപ്പ്
ഡബിൾ.
ഓക്കെ. അപ്പം ഈ ഒരു ക്ലാസിന്റെ പേര് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ക്ലാസിന്റെ അകത്തുള്ള മെത്തേഡിന്റെ പേര് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് കാൽക്ക് ഏരിയ ആണ്. ആ കാൽക്ക് ഏരിയ റിട്ടേൺ ചെയ്യുന്നത് ഡബിൾ ആണ്. ഡബിൾ റിട്ടേൺ ചെയ്യുന്ന വേരിയബിൾ ഏരിയ ആണ്. ഓക്കെ, ഫൈൻ. ഇനി so we have seen how we can declare a class. So in C++ we have also seen we can declare an object of the class. Okay, so there's a small difference in defining an object of the class from C++ and Java. So object in Java is essentially a block of memory that contains space to store or instance of the variables. Creating an object is also referred to as instantiating an object. Okay, this is called as an object instantiation. Objects in Java are created using new operator. The new operator creates an object of the class and returns a reference to that object. For example, so in C++ we have just did rectangle, which is the class name, space the object, which is rect1. Okay, ഇത്രയും മതിയായിരുന്നു C++. പക്ഷേ when you come to Java, you need to create an object by saying rect1 is equal to new class name in brackets, class name with the opening and closing brackets. So what it does is a new memory will be allocated. That is why we have a command called as new, and the rect1 will be pointing to that memory, or it's actually a reference to that memory. So this is how you create a object in Java. This can be created in another way by combining these two sentences in a single sentence, saying that rectangle rect1 is equal to new rectangle. So this is also same as this one. You can create an object of the class in either of the way. Both are same. Okay, so you can create any number of objects for the same class. For example, for rect1 I have an object created, rect2 is another object created. By using, whenever you use a new keyword, it actually creates a memory for the object. So the next time when you create the object new rectangle, it creates a new memory which is not same as that from the rect1. So these are two different objects. Okay, so you see that there is a rectangle, so we can assume that whatever there is on the right hand side, which is mentioned as rectangle, as a memory. So this rect1 is pointing to first rectangle and rect2 is pointing to the second rectangle. Okay, so that means any changes using rect1 will not affect any changes using rect2. But I can assign a object to another object. Okay, so rectangle R1 is equal to new rectangle. Then you say rectangle R2 is equal to R1. If I do that, both R1 and R2 will be pointing to the same memory location. So any changes you do using R1 will get reflected in R2, or the same change will happen in R2 also. If you remember in C++, if we want to do this kind of operation, then we need to use an operator overloading. In Java, you don't need to use an operator overloading. It actually means that you create a new reference for R1. That's all. Okay, now how will you access the class members using the object? Now, the class members can be accessed through the object using the dot operator. For example, object name dot variable name is equal to value, object name dot method name in bracket parameter list. Okay. For example, so members of the class rectangle, in the previous slides, we have seen that there are two variables for the class, which are basically length and width. This for class rectangle, you have two variables, length and width. So I want to access these variables outside the class using its object. So to do that, you say the object name dot length is equal to the value, which will assign the value to the variable of that object. Similarly, if you use rect1 dot width is equal to 10, you are assigning a value 10 to width in the object rect1. Similarly, you can access length and width using rect2 also, but both rect1 and rect2 are two different objects, and it will not affect any change in one of them. Okay, let's look at a very detailed program. So rectangle, in this class rectangle, has two variables, length and width, has a function or a method called as getData, which accepts two input arguments x and y of type integer, and x is assigned to length, y is assigned to width. There is another method called as rectArea, which returns an integer value, and in this rectArea you are declaring a variable called as area, which is of integer type, and you are calculating the area of the rectangle using the values assigned to length and width, which is length into width, and you are returning the area. In the class rectArea, you have defined the main function. You have two variables, area1 and area2, which is of integer type. You are creating two objects, rect1 and rect2, using the new operator and the class name. And you are assigning the value of length of rect1 as 15 and width of rect1 as 10. Then you are calculating the area. So area 1 is rect1 dot length into rect1 dot width. In using for rect2, instead of directly accessing length and width, what you are doing is you are calling the function getData, and you are passing the arguments 20 and 12. So x will be 20, y will be 12. Okay, and so the length and width for rect2 is 20 and 12 respectively. When you want to find the area, what you do is you say area2 is equal to rect2 dot rectArea, which means you are calling this function. When this function is called, the length will be multiplied by width. So in this case, 20 into 12, and that value will be returned to area 2. And the values of area 1 and area 2 are printed. So let's do that step by step. So first, length and width are declared. Then you have defined two functions called as getData and rectArea, or two methods inside the class rectangle. Then you have created a new class for the main function. In this class, you have created two objects, rect1 and rect2. and you have assigned the values 15 and 10 for length and width in the object rect1 respectively. Then you calculated the area by directly accessing length and width. And then instead of directly accessing length and width, using the object rect2, you are calling the function getData, passing the arguments and assigning the values for length and width. And then for calculating the area, instead of directly accessing length and width, you are calling the function rect area, which will return you the area of the values that you have passed, which will be printed using systemout.println. Okay, so this is a simple program where you have created a class called as rectangle, which is used to assign the values of length and width and to calculate the area. Okay, so this is a simple program. Now we have seen constructors in C++ as a method which is used to initialize the object. Okay, so every time an object is created using new keyword, so whenever you use a new keyword to create an object, at least one constructor is called. So in C++, we have seen like there are 3 types of constructor. In Java also there are multiple types of constructors. So if you haven't defined a constructor, it calls something called a default constructor. Okay, the Java compiler will provide itself a constructor called as default constructor, and you should see that the default constructor that you see in C++ and in Java is different. We'll see that. Now, rules for creating constructor. The constructor name must be same as its class name. The constructor must have no explicit return type. A Java constructor cannot be abstract, static, final, and synchronized. So these are all different types of Java properties. We will see that one by one. Okay, so if you look at this is an example for a default constructor. A constructor is called default constructor when it doesn't have any parameter. So in this class student3, you have a variable declared as ID. There's a variable called as name of type string. There's a function called as display. There is a main function of that which creates 2 objects S1 and S2. So here, if you see, there are no constructor defined in this class. So if you want to define a constructor, you should have a function with the name same as that of the class name, which is student3. But none of the functions have the same name as student3, which means there are no constructors defined in this code. So if when you create this object S1, the Java program implicitly will provide a constructor to initialize these 2 variables, which we will not be seeing. It will automatically be initialized. Now, let's say the programmer want to initialize by himself. In that case, the programmer need to write something called as a parameterized constructor. The parameterized constructor is used to provide different values to distinct objects, or you can provide the same values. We'll see an example. So in this case, if you see the class student4, which is exactly same as that of the previous code, have one extra function called as student4, which is the name of the class itself. And there are 2 input arguments of int type and string type, I and n. Sorry, I is assigned the value ID, n is assigned the value name. So you see that this is a constructor which accepts 2 input arguments, which is called as a parameterized constructor. So when I do an initialize instantiation of the object, instead of doing new student4 with only brackets, what I will do is I will pass arguments into the brackets. So when I do this, 111 will be passed to I and current will be passed to n. And this is how you initialize the variables for that object S1. Similarly, when I create a new variable called as S2, I am having different values for I and n. So I will have 222, which will be passed. Sorry, 222 will be passed and copied to I. Aryan will be passed and copied to n. And this will be assigned to ID and name for the object S2. So you see that when you create an object, you are actually also passing arguments if you have a parameterized construct like this. Okay, so that is regarding the parameterized constructor. So we'll stop it here. There is a small topic also remaining called as method overloading, which I think might take some time for me to finish. So we'll take that in the next class. Okay, and next class I don't know whether I will be able to take it. I have some other emergencies. If there is no information from me, then you will have class during the regular time. Otherwise, I will let you know whether it is rescheduled or whether you have a recorded video or something like that, which I will let you know once I tomorrow morning before your class starts. So if